Ken Rosser, obviously a long-standing friend of the partnership and former chair of the Scotland Malawi Partnership, and takes through proceedings today. But I just want to say, from our perspective, the Scotland Malawi Partnership, how excited we are to be involved in the book launch today, and how appropriate we thought it was for us to offer to help host it. Music has always been at the heart of the bilateral relationship between Scotland and Malawi, whether it is Davie Luhanga, who's I think going to play us at the end of the meeting, performing at our events, as he often does so well, or Scottish pipers who always come out of the woodworks the closer you get to a Burns night or a St Andrews night. And of course, John Lwanda himself, a great friend of the partnership, and many memorable occasions in our past as a network. John's performed opening one of our AGMs from memory, performing at the Livingston Bicentenary event, I remember, in the Arches in Glasgow, and often having stalls selling Malawian music at our AGM marketplaces as well. So no, we're really excited to be a part of today. We're certainly going to be buying up a number of copies for the Scotland Malawi library, and excited to have those signed by the author himself. But with these remarks, let's hand over to our chair of the ceremony. Ken, over to you.
David, thank you very much, and warm greetings to everyone from Zomba. And especially to our guest of honor, our author, John Lwanda. So when a new baby is born, you have to celebrate, and especially when the new baby is as beautiful as this one that's before us today, with its wonderful Andrew Misi painting on the front cover. And one thing that we have learned, those of us who've enjoyed the friendship of John Lwanda over the years, is that he is the master of the unexpected. And I think for me, the big unexpected thing today is I never expected in my whole life I would be chairing a launch of a book about music. But I suspect what John must have done is he looked for the most unmusical person he could find in Malawi, and elected him to be the chair for the ceremony. But although I will not claim any proficiency in terms of Malawi music, one thing I have learned is that Kuimba di Kuvina, it's more or less synonymous with being alive in the Malawi context. And so we are dealing this afternoon with something that is vital to life as it is experienced in Malawi. And our author, John Lwanda, brings a unique perspective to it, because he is something that is becoming rather unusual nowadays, which is, I think I could call him a polymath. He looks at things from many different angles, and in an age when many people will only publish in their own highly specialized area, John has taken a different approach, and he can look at issues from several different angles. He has, of course, had a distinguished medical career, which is quite enough to occupy most people on its own. But at the same time as John has been practicing medicine, he's been developing his work as a social scientist and a cultural analyst. Unfortunately for us, much of this work has been focused on Malawi. For decades, he has been an acute observer of the Malawian scene. And somehow, although for much of the time he's been thousands of miles away, he always seems to know more about what is actually happening in Malawi than those of us who are actually living here. Now, John did have an earlier book, which some of you may be familiar with, Music, Culture and Orature, Reading the Malawi Public Sphere, 1949 to 2006, which is an exceptionally interesting and original book, which I've certainly benefited from. But little did we know that this publication was but the forerunner for what was coming with the magnum opus on Malawi's music, which is what we have gathered to launch today. I think it's fair to say it isn't entirely focused on Malawi's music, but it's still very much located in the public square, and with multiple angles of analysis that John Lwanda brings to it. So this afternoon, we're going to hear about the book from the publisher, from the author, and from a reviewer. So I think it's going to be a rich introduction to the book that is in front of us. But we'd also like very much to encourage audience participation in the event. And I would like to encourage everyone who's present to use the chat function in Zoom. If you're familiar with the chat, you can find it just on the footer banner of the Zoom call, and you can quickly type a question into the chat. Maybe you've arrived already with a question you want to ask about the book, or one might be prompted in your mind when you hear our speakers. So at any time, if you'd like to put in a question in the chat, we will have a Q&A when we'll pick up as many of the questions as we can. But without undue delay, let me get our program rolling. And we're going to turn first to the publisher of the book, to Muti Phoya of Logos Open Culture. So Muti, are you in Lilongwe?
Yes, I am.
I thought you would be. So this is us connecting from Zomba. And
yeah.
We'd just like to ask you to introduce this book to us. Tell us why did you decide to publish this book, and what is it going to offer to the reading public in Malawi?
Right. Okay. I think first of all, I'll start introducing what we do as Logos Open Culture. The main aim is to try and open up Malawi. Anyone who's dealt with Malawi, especially on the research front, knows that finding information on Malawi, finding data on Malawi it's not always easy, because even up to today, this is 2022, but Malawi is still predominantly an oral-based culture. So we come in to try and do our bit as regards to bringing in the printing culture into the narrative that is Malawi. So we are first and foremost publishers, focusing mainly on books on Malawi. This is our third publication. The first one is called Malawi Press Apart, written by Asbjørn Eidhammer, who was the ambassador, Norwegian ambassador to Malawi for quite a while. Our second book is called Lomotinda Rose Chombo Speaks, which was written by not Ken Lipenga Jr., but Timo Lipenga Jr., who's on faculty at Tansa College. And then this will be our third publication, which is making music in Malawi. I think John Lwanda, we go a long way back a bit. Some of us look up to him as a mentor of sorts. In fact, we've got a bit of a father-son relationship. John Lwanda has been one of the most driven scholars on Malawi, very dedicated, and his commitment to especially the subaltern communities of Malawi, the voices of Malawi, in bringing, giving him a voice and adding nuance to the story. In that regard, John sits at the very top of that sort of scholarship. So for us as Logos Open Culture to actually publish a work by him, a work as encompassing as as this, it took him 20 years to research. for instance. So I think that just feeds into the whole narrative of what we are trying to do, which is to open up as much of Malawi as possible, but also just to bring names that are at a risk of being forgotten, into the names that are at risk of being forgotten. Just bring them into the forefront, and and bring them back into the public domain. Saying that in this story called in this thing called Malawi, even people like these ones, the musicians, have played a key role in a culture where people celebrate through music, people cry through music, people, politicians, use music as a vehicle, to push forward their agendas. So the reader, but what should the reader expect from the book? A much deeper understanding of Malawi. Because I think John Lwanda, as a social historian, he knows and he's invested quite a lot. He's one of the few scholars on Malawi who's really able to unpack this story of this thing called Malawi, and he's very I think he's a scholar in the truest sense of the word. He's unbiased, he's very objective, but also just very, very committed. I mean, the fact that it took him 20 years, again, 20 years to research such a book. So the reader will gain a lot as far as understanding music in Malawi goes, as far as understanding the role of music in Malawi goes, and as far as understanding the role of orature in a country like Malawi, which is up to today still oral based. And then what we are trying to do as Logos Open Culture is really to we look at Malawi as this one entity which has many nodes. So our job is to try and connect as many nodes as possible in such a way as this one helps us, push that agenda forward to a point where someone who's doing research on Malawi, if they get a book like Rwanda's Making Music Malawi, they get a much fuller, a much richer picture of this thing called Malawi. So for that, we are thankful. Also, just thankful to him as well, because he's been very supportive of us. We consider him part of Logos Open Culture. In fact, he's part of our team in a sense. We give him the title senior researcher. So, but for me personally, as a Malawian, as someone who's interested in the Malawi story, as someone who's written a fair bit on Malawi as well, just to publish someone of his stature and just to work with him, for me, like a dream come true. And before I forget, in wrapping up, let me just thank the German embassy in Malawi, and also thank Asbjørn Eidhammer. They gave the finances that were actually used to publish this book. So those are just my few words. And again, good to be here, and just and a big thank you to the Scottish Malawi Partnership, for organizing this, and also just for all the work that you're doing in trying to connect in Scotland and in Malawi. Thank you.
Great. Well, thank you so much, Muti. And please, if you can, do stick around in case there might be questions coming from the audience later. But it's now time that we turn to the man of the moment, our author, John Lwanda. John, I don't know if you're like me, but when people start using adjectives like senior about you, it gets a bit worrying, but maybe we have to face this now. But we turn to you, and looking forward to hearing from you, John, and hoping you can take us into some of the inside story of the making of this book being launched today. So I hope we can now turn to Edinburgh, to the live event, and hear from John Lwanda.
Thank you very much. Thank you to the Scottish Malawi Partnership. Thank you to you, Ken Ross. Thanks to Ken Lipenga for agreeing to do the review at short notice. I know he's very busy. Thanks to Muti, the publisher, and also Mona Hakimi, who was the copy editor on the work. I'll just talk briefly. First of all, I'll say how it came about that I wrote the book. By nature, I'm a musicophile, or to use a big word, I like using big words, melomaniac by nature. My father loved music, and for those of you who know African music, he would sing like NP Kazembe, but he never gave me those genes. I don't know why. He also, the Scottish connection, taught Scottish country dancing in primary school. Now, I don't know where he got that from. And it's one of these things you talk, Kelly talk about when you're getting old. Now, one of the things I regret is when I get old, there are questions I should have asked my aunt or my dad or my mom, which I never asked. That's the problem. So my advice to the young ones is please ask those questions now before the old get old. Okay. Anyway, I always remember that there was radio noise from early days when my father was teaching at St. Philip's School in Sipolio, Zimbabwe, and there was an old echo radio. And now I know from having done the research that we're listening to Radio Lusaka or the Central African Broadcasting Services when people like Wilson Makawa and Alvin Carter, were playing and so on. I started collecting and consuming music from a very early age. In fact, the 78s, which my father was using for his Scottish country dancing and the wind-up radiogram, were only broken when I left Malawi. And one of the bad news I heard was, not that so-so had died, but those 7 days have been broken. I don't know how they were broken, but some things you just leave alone because it just gives you blood pressure to see who broke them. It doesn't matter, but they're broken. So I came to Scotland, and in those days, when you arrived in Glasgow, there was an entrepreneur called John McCormack, who had a radio shop in Bath Street, Glasgow, who sold shortwave radios. Okay, I think it was his understanding that African students missed their music. I think he was a very perceptive man, and we bought shortwave radios. And on that, I would listen to, sorry to say, Radio South Africa. If I could do, the singing, that the bad thing, Chipper, welcome to Radio RSA, and we could hear, the African music and all that stuff. Of course, West African stations were much easier to get. And I remember, listening to music from Victor Waifo, Dr. Nico, and all that stuff. And then I said, no, I need to be collecting music from my own country. So I hit upon the trick of, if anybody came to Scotland or they were going back, I would buy one of those, the cassette, blank cassettes carrying 10s and 20s. I would send them back. Could give this to my brother or my nephew. Now, if I sent 20 and I got 3 back, I was very lucky indeed. But that's how I did it. So then, the instructors were just record everything, the NBC, from beginning to end. It doesn't matter whether it's a political speech or, so I've got hundreds of these recordings, on cassettes and all that stuff. And then when Malawi opened up, just another story, I started going to Malawi. I went there, I did my own field recordings. Contract, as Ken Ross said, it's amazing that somebody who lives in Scotland, but I mean the roster of musicians, I know people like Waliko Makala, Overton Chimombo, Saleta Piriam, and so on, personally, because I dealt with them. There was a time when I thought I was going to stay in Malawi. I was briefly the head of medicine at the College of Medicine. Before I left and came back, I would go to lecture, and then my secretary would come back and she would look at me as if, said, is this senior lecturer or something? Funny something to say, your friends were here, and the friends were people like Senator people just coming to the office who come to see the doctor. And obviously, musicians do not dress in suits and all that stuff. But those were my friends, and I mentioned Senator Piri, I recorded Namoko, and so on and so forth. And then I collected music from the Institute of African Music at Rose University. I hooked up with folkies, published articles in folk root, journal articles and so on. So it's been a long sort of experience. Now, I've recorded at Billy Gowden studio. I've recorded Chechamba, who's Malawi's probably longest serving musician, who died last year. Along the way, obviously, I've had a lot of experiences with musicians. Most of them very good. Some tragic, some sort of. It's very difficult to deal with musicians. I'm wearing this shirt just to debate because those of you who like music, there's a series called Hits You Motown, and Barry Gordy, who started Motown Records, is seen wearing a shirt like that. And Barry Gordy was one of my role models. I was Quincy Jones, except of course I don't have their entrepreneurial talents to produce a company. Anyway, my enterprise were both research, personal consumption, and we eventually set up a small record company called Pamtondo. And Pamtondo was very privileged to record Namoko. In fact, the best recording of Namoko was made by ourselves. Saleza Piri, the best recording of Saleza Piri was made by ourselves. And the young Kasambwe band. Now, Kasambwe band is, some of you might remember this. Okay, so that was our recording, and we put out a cassette, and it went into Malawi, and
just to avoid still there. And my favorite song from these guys is that one. Malawi time is a tango.
yes,
They say that mom helped me climb a thorny tree and I'm failing to get down. Please, mom, help me.
So we put out the cassette, hit Malawi, and the Tanzanian pirates pirated it. And it coincided with me going back to Malawi, and I went to the Rongo market, and my cassette was being sold left, right, and center, and I was literally broke, and I went to these guys, and I persuaded them it was my recording, and they were pirating it. Now, those of you who've been to the Rongo market, Devil Street, know that it's not a very gentle place. And those of you who know me know that I'm very argumentative. So I went there 3 times. Fortunately, I was in the company of my sister Margaret. So that the 3rd time, a polite sort of faggish guy said, "Doctor, we've heard what you said. We believe you, but we've got anything now. Go away." And anyway, but from the words of the song, the song is set in sort of, they are saying that they were sleeping at night, and whatever happened during the night caused a certain family to be ill. Now, at the time, the Kasambwe brothers were, one of them was 13, the other was 17. And clearly, they had just taken the song from their mothers, okay? So that gave me this idea for this male appropriation of female music in Malawi. That one, and there's another song called Makolo by Mitoche Band. Okay, and then there was another song, if I can line it up, this one. Okay, now that is played at every engagement wedding in Malawi. And if the bass was loud enough out there, any Malawian known to start dancing. Okay, but if you listen to the words, okay, ask Malawians, they interpret the words for you. Again, I listen to the words, and you know, this mouth layered, you know, so produce another paper, the invisibility of HIV in the Malawi public sphere. Because what is said in the words, kids, you know, can dance to it without being corrupted. But the words are really quite sexually very profound, because they are preparing somebody for wedding. So it's to do with having these cassettes, and I'm driving around in Scotland doing my house calls. It might be 20 minutes to house call, so I have time to listen to the songs. Okay. Anyway, at that point I was already into Ali Mazroui's definition of culture as lenses for perception, cognition, production, and so on. So I saw that a lot of what is in music in Malawi contributes to what we think culturally, and so on and so on and so forth. Along that point, I could mention two things. Malawians are like the Scots and the English. We sing, insult each other in song, and you know, Angoni and all that stuff. But I cannot, as of now, conceive of the Angonis, you know, getting AK-49s and going to fight the Longmans, because I think the music is a lot of diffuses a lot of these cultural tensions, you know, called sustenance and all that stuff. And I think it ends there. So music is quite important in that regard. The other thing I learned is how musicians use music to critique society. So there was a Nangalembe. So he's saying, Mr. Nazigamba, you know, Mr. Lwanda, where are you? And somebody else says, oh, he's inside his house mending his rugs. So that song was played every other day on the NBC, almost 2-3 times a day. And the funny thing was, it was played when Dr. Banda was making his speech saying, I came here and I found you in Mwanzaniano literally naked. And as soon as the song was finished, some of the DJs, you know, and we think DJs are all compliant, everybody at the NBC is compliant. No. And they'll say, oh, we've listened to His Excellency giving us some good advice, his speech. And then some of them would immediately put Nangalembe's speech after, you know, and Nangalembe was in his speech very criticizing Dr. Banda, you know, just tearing Dr. Banda to shreds. And I can't do the technical bits if I wish I could. There's a point where so that was a gratuitous Wamanga Batunda. He's built a house up on a hill where there's no water. I mean, that was the time when Dr. Banda was building Sanjika. You know, open, blatant criticism played on the NBC every day. Okay? At the same time, some of my classmates were beginning to be put in Mikuyu just for writing very dense, obscure poetry. Okay? So I like that about musicians, because, you know, they speak to my tendencies, you know, to criticize all the time. Okay. So
hello, John. I'm just coming in. John, I'm coming in just to remind you. You told me that I would have to stop you eventually if we were going to keep the program.
Okay.
So I don't want to stop you now, but maybe just in a few minutes we should be ready to hand over to our reviewer.
Excellent. Yeah. So along the way, of course, I discovered some gems, you know, and the gems like this, which a lot of you know. Okay, excellent music from Malawi Bumba, and in the research. Yeah, some of my more proper musicologists tell me that that kind of singing before Bumba came and hoovered everything has more in characteristic with some of the Highland singing, folk singing. So these are the roots of Bumba, which obviously you don't find nowadays. Been privileged to record jazz music. The same as well, I must tell, one of the most supportive and mentoring musicians I dealt with was Saleta Piri. And we really became friends. So I recorded him last in 1998, I think. When I saw him perform, he would start his session with a tuning song. It was a blues song. This one. So I said, Saleta, I want you to record that song like that, no singing, just blues. That was the worst thing I would say to a musician. So this is what happened. So I was dreaming, now that's us. Good morning, this is Zodiac Broadcasting Story with that track in the background. And then he goes and opens his mouth. What does he say? The track becomes political, no royalties. Thank you.
John, thank you so much for your reflections and also getting our feet tapping as we went along. But of course, a book needs not only an author, but also readers. And among the first to read this new book is Ken Lipenga Jr., who's here in Zomba. So Ken, we're turning to you. Please tell us, what did you make of the new book?
Thank you, Ken. I guess everyone can hear me, I hope.
Yeah, very well, very well.
Okay,
Ken.
okay. Yes, I think I would summarize my impression about the book by saying that this is the closest that we have to an encyclopedia of Malawian music. And that's a statement that I've been thinking about for a while, both in terms of praise of the book, as well as what I would call some challenges that I'm posing towards John Lwanda. I think this is a book that very much actually wanted to become an encyclopedia of Malawian music, but either the author or the publishers stopped it from becoming an encyclopedia. But it's the closest thing that we have. So, you know, along the way, it could be titled an encyclopedia or a guidebook to Malawian music. Now, a lot has been said about the author, and some of it has been said about the author himself. But one thing that we all agree on, especially within the world of music scholarship, is that John Lwanda is probably one of the top, if not the top scholar on Malawian music. And like you said yourself, Ken, this is something of, would I say, a surprise to many, because this is a person who is in the medical field, not necessarily in the music field, but he loves Malawian music so much, and he has published a lot on Malawian music that academics use from time to time. And I would actually pose a challenge that if you look at any publication, any academic publication in the past 5 years on Malawian music, that publication will be citing John Lwanda at one point or another, especially the articles that he has written. Now, this brings me to another point in relation to that idea I have about this text being the closest thing to an encyclopedia of Malawian music. From the material published by Lwanda that I've read, including this book, I'm able to isolate two sides of the person. On the one hand, we have John Lwanda, the historian, or what I would call the archivist or the curator of material. And on the other side, we have John Lwanda, the analyst of material. You know, he was talking just now, he said he tends to be argumentative at times. And we see that in some of his articles, including the articles that he mentioned just a few minutes ago, one about the invisibility of HIV/AIDS and the one about adopting women's songs. In those articles, we see John Lwanda as an argumentative character, someone who is building an argument in the academic writing. But at the same time, you know, what works best is when that argumentative side comes together with the historian. So you have the historian gathering the material, curating the material, and presenting it in a systematic fashion. But at the same time, you have the analyst coming in and critiquing that material. And in this book is a joy for many. I think many within the history fields, those who are interested in Malawian culture, or even African culture, African music in general, because of the archivist, the archival spirit with which it is presented. You know, he has gathered a lot of valuable research material. It's a gold mine of information. I think that's how I would put it. But Lwanda, the argumentative character, doesn't show up as much as I would have liked. You know, the argumentative character is there in the academic articles. You know, I've encountered him so many times. I've even disagreed with him. I've argued with him before. But in this case, Lwanda, the argumentative character, he doesn't show up as much. He's more interested in bringing up this information, all this data on Malawian music. And I think in relation to what the publisher was saying earlier on, Lwanda is helping with this project of opening up Malawi. So his primary interest is in showcasing what Malawi has to the world in terms of discussing the music. So when I say that this is like an encyclopedia, I'm acknowledging the breadth of material, the amount of material that has been packed into this book. You know, when someone looks at the book, they would think it's already a huge book. I think from the books that have been published by Logos publishers, this should be the largest, but it could have been larger. You know, in a way, I think there's a lot of material that has been compressed within it, and it touches on so many subjects. If you think of any musician that has made a name within Malawi in the past few years, you're going to find that that musician has been mentioned to some extent within the book. But as I said earlier on, you know, he's presenting the musicians and the music in an archival style. He shies away from evaluating the music, from making judgments. And of course, if you make judgments, sometimes you can make enemies in the music industry if you say things about the music. And maybe that's not what he wants to do, because as he has told us, he has had good personal relations with so many musicians over the years. So another aspect of the brilliance, or what makes this book shine, is the fact that you know, it adopts a historical angle, and this is a reflection of a researcher who has been working in the field for a long time. You know, it's not an exercise that anyone could just wake up and do. So as a result, he's able to create comparisons between the newer artists and the older artists. Many people can't do that unless they are familiar with the older traditions. And we've heard the samples that he has been playing just a few minutes ago. You know, those are the older samples, but you find that this is someone who is able to engage you in discussing some of the newer artists. Like in the book, he talks about Tay Green, you know, he talks about Tay Green, he talks about Namadingo, he talks about some of the younger artists, but he's able to make connections. He's able to show influences that are traced from earlier musicians. So creating those ties is something that I applaud him for. Not many people could have done that in a book such as this one. So before I close, the other thing that I'd like to note about the book is that, again, following that same spirit of an encyclopedia of Malawian music, Lwanda is not just talking about the musicians, but he also tackles certain aspects that are not directly related to music or to singing. And I think that is something I didn't expect to find in the book, but it's something that is very welcome. And in this case, I'm talking about, for instance, issues to do with marketing of music, distribution of music, even studios. He talks about the studios where people go and record their songs. I think that is something that no one has done within scholarship. I think there are little bits here and there, but he deals with it in a systematic fashion. And I think a lot of people would go into the book thinking that perhaps it's a blueprint for how to make it in the music industry, but unfortunately it doesn't do that, and I didn't expect it to do that, but it shows a writer who is familiar with the ins and outs of the industry. He deals with pressing issues like piracy, for example. He was giving us an example of his own music being pirated, and he discusses that, and I know that is a thorn, that is an issue that many musicians are sensitive about. They would want it addressed, but it hasn't been addressed to the fullest extent. And I was quite happy to read about that. There's a lot that I could say about the book, and there's a lot that I've written. I've noticed that there are some other reviews that have already started coming out in the papers. So it's not right to say I'm the only reviewer of the book, but that means a lot of people are interested in that text. So Ken, I think that is what I can say about the book for now. I'm glad that I have a copy, because now a good number of the articles that I go around downloading from the internet are already contained in this book. So, you know, kudos to him and an advantage to me. Thank you.
Oh, Ken, thank you so much. I didn't think I was ever going to see the day when John Lwanda would be criticized for not being argumentative enough. I think, John, you better remember this day. I don't think it's going to happen very often.
Ken, getting old.
No, thanks to you, Ken, for a really brilliant review. And I think the only thing I do have to say to you before we let you go is, please, will you think about publishing this review, that it should have come out in a permanent printed form, because I think it's something really valuable. So I hope we'll see it in a permanent printed form.
That's the plan. That's the plan.
Ah, excellent, excellent. Well, we'll look forward to that, because you packed so much in, so many angles, and I think you you let us understand how John Lwanda is an author of many parts. So he's not just in one groove like many of us might be, but he's not only able to write about different topics, but able to write in a different genre and a different approach. So I think that for me, it gave me something even further to appreciate about the book.
Yes.
We have
could I don't know if you're pressed for time, but
sure. No, come back and Ken.
Yeah,
welcome.
there was something I wanted to say about the actual structure of the book. What the author has done is something that removes the monotony, or that he avoids becoming monotonous, because almost every chapter has a case study. And that case study is a focused look at a specific artist. Yeah, so this has a huge historical range from some of the older artists, the Namokos, and some of the newer artists. So if you read the general material, you're always assured that there's going to be specific treatment or specific discussion of a single artist or a single band. But anyway, that's it.
Great. No, thanks, Ken. We just have two things left to do, and I think I'm going to take the privilege of what's sometimes called Malawi time to extend our time a little bit. I think on the strict schedule, we should be finishing at the top of the hour, but I hope if our technicians in Edinburgh can help us, we could get a little grace time, because there's two things left still to do. One is to give an opportunity for any questions from the audience. Looking around the room, both the digital one and the physical one, I can see a fantastic range of knowledge about Malawi and indeed the wider context. So any questions from the floor will be very welcome. And also, you'll understand the event would not be complete without some live music being part of it. And I believe I saw Davie Luhanga with his guitar walking into the room earlier on. So I'm hoping that it'll also be possible for us to have a little live music to round things off. But let me ask for the audience, anything you would like to ask to John as the author, or indeed to Muti as publisher, to Ken as the reviewer. I think it's possible you can raise your hand with the chat, or put a question in the chat, or you can just jump in if you would like to say something. So just unmute yourself and come in with your question or comment. So it's an open mic now. Please, welcome. I can see a hand from Daisy. Can I invite Daisy to come in?
Hello, thank you so much for that. I enjoyed it so much. My question is a fairly obvious one. Is this available on the international market? And if so, where can we buy it? Perhaps directed at Muti.
Thank you, Daisy. Muti, are you able to come back on that one?
Yeah, so can you hear me?
Yeah.
Yes.
Oh, good. So we, in the past, we're using the African Books Collective as our main distributor, but there were some challenges there. So we're trying to work out some newer routes to get the book out onto the world. But one of the things that we're doing, we're maybe maybe the only publishing house in Malawi. We are trading rights on the Frankfurt, through the Frankfurt rights platform in Germany, which is maybe by far the biggest platform for trading rights. So something will come out of that, and we'll quickly update our customers on that. In the meantime, the book will be on Amazon and Barnes & Noble and a few other outlets very soon.
Okay.
Thanks for that, Muti. Really helpful. Then I think people can get it anywhere if they have access to Amazon. But I see a question from David for John himself. Any other books you're working on right now? If it's not a trade secret, John, can you tell us anything what you've got brewing?
Well, from the constant mention of mellowing, I'm working on my memoirs now before.
Very good. Well, no, you're whetting our appetite, John. We'll certainly be looking forward to that. I'm sure that's going to be just an amazing perspective on Malawi, and probably a little bit of Scotland in it as well, I guess.
Very much so.
Anyone else, either in the room or online, who wants to make a point or bring a question?
Could I say something, Ken?
Yeah, this is a good day for Kens. I can see Ken King possibly joining us from East Lothian, is it?
Right.
That's Pravina here, and I thought I'd make.
Nice to see you too.
I thought I'd make a remark for the benefit of the younger people here, which is that in case you think that John is just an expert on, doing some stuff on music and so on, he is one of my PhDs, the only PhD student who did his PhD half time, not full time. And he finished it, despite being also a doctor, he finished it in less time than the full-time people who had 3 years of scholarship. And so I'm going to read out to you 2 lines that I wrote about him as a reference once. His work his work showed him to be a most assiduous researcher with an inquiring mind and a prodigious capacity for hard and sustained work. Now, what about that? I think his other PhD supervisor, Paul Nugent, would agree with me that we had in John a most remarkable PhD student, come doctor, come part-time musician. Well done, John.
Thank you.
Yeah, well done, John. I don't think you need to answer that, but if you're getting that kind of flattery from your supervisor, you must have done something right. But I can see Mavuto Bamusi is coming in. Mavuto.
Thank you very much, and congratulations, John. Thank you very much, and congratulations, Dr. Lwanda, for that great book. Now, I have a question. A couple of songs that you played, and I guess they are part of the book, are drawn from the past political regime of Dr. Banda. Now, that was the time when censorship was really strong and serious, and a couple of songs that would play on MBC would have gone through that serious screening process. Yet Malawi had to go through a political transition, a revolution kind of. Now the question that I have specifically is, if one were to sample some of the songs, part of the music that has been built into the book, how revolutionary politically are the songs? Is the current crop of musicians in Malawi doing a good job in as far as production of politically revolutionary music is anything to go by or is concerned? There was a time somewhere when we had Matafale. Matafale released a couple of songs that some people thought that was the beginning of the production of politically revolutionary music in Malawi. But at the moment, how good is the current crop of musicians in Malawi or artists in Malawi doing in as far as the politically sensitive message songs is concerned? Thank you.
Okay, I will answer that question in a number of ways. Number one, musicians are always very clever in disguising their songs. So, for example, we had Muti Phoya, and then Bakili Murus came in, and you remember that Joseph Nkasa had a song called Nkope, which I thought I had in here, and it says Kale Kale Lukuchukuru Anasaka Malafika, and he was saying that he was using a biblical metaphor. In the old days, the people chose unwisely. Okay, so it wasn't a direct confrontation with the Muluzi, but however, Muluzi got the message, and when Nkasa thought he didn't hear the message, then Nkasa criticized Muluzi for telling lies. You know, he was promised a car, and then the car wasn't delivered because Muluzi promised everybody cars. And then so Nkasa wrote a song called Anamba. Okay, so at Mangochi they had that, he mentioned various people, various places. So everybody heard that Muluzi was going to buy Nkasa a car, but the car was not delivered. So the conclusion was that the president was telling lies. So he did that without actually calling the president a liar. So that's another way of doing it. And then the same Nkasa, when Bill came along, he called him most valuable. Okay, and of course then Nkasa's cachet as a critic disappeared. Okay, but the population, this is what I like about the Malawians. They used Mose Walero to describe, useless small fonts. So anything that was of small, worthless was called a Mose Walero. Okay, so in a way, Nkasa was criticizing Bingu as well. Okay, now you're asking, are the current musicians doing a good job? I think that's where now I have to be, wear several hats. I'm a poet as well. So I'm more impressed with the poets, okay, rather than the musicians. The musicians are falling into the trap of being journalistic. So there's a song which just come out saying Lipenga or something, criticizing the current regime for failing. That's very blatant. That's like the old 21 writing, saying this government is failing. That's one way of doing it. Whereas the poets are more nuanced. Their criticism is more pleasant to me. So I hope that answers the question.
Good. No, thank you very much, John. In fact, I think that's exactly the kind of analysis that gives us a good note on which to finish our discussion, since we're already running over time. John, can you just confirm for me, have you got Davie Luhanga with you in Edinburgh?
Yes. Yes, right here.
Okay, because I'm very determined that we're not going to finish without actually hearing some live music. And I'm sure Davie has been thinking about what Malawi music he would bring to the celebration of this event. So I think just in a moment, we're going to finish on a strong note with live music in Edinburgh and the chance for all of us to hear it wherever we are. But to round off the discussion, the spoken part, let me just finish with a big thank you to everyone who has participated, particularly to John himself, of course, for the big work of producing this book, which, as Ken has pointed out, is going to be a landmark book here in Malawi and perhaps more widely. And to our other participants, the Scotland Malawi Partnership for the live hosting, the Malawi Scotland Partnership in Lilongwe, Muti, the publisher, also in Lilongwe, and Ken Lipenga Jr. here in Zomba. I think it's just been an excellent combination to give us the sense of this book, its importance, and I hope everyone who's with us, one way or another, they're going to find a way to get their hands on this book. So I think we'll just do for everyone a little digital applause if we can. But the finishing note today has to be a musical one. So I don't know if Davie Luhanga can get into the spotlight so we can both see him and hear him. That will be a wonderful conclusion to round off. So over to you, Davie, and thanks for being with us.
Thank you very much. So that one was in a Kiambonde language.
Yes,
I don't know if you can recognize that language.
Yeah.
Yeah. If you don't recognize the language,
So you have to tell them the meaning of this song. Because I was saying David and
all right.
and the brother.
All right. So the just finished song is talking about this girl Lide who has got a behavior going out with so many different boys. So then this boy who she just got in love with has experienced some social behavior or unfriendly behavior, like when she wants to go out with the girl, like to go to the lake and have some good time, and this girl, the behavior is not right. So he's complaining that yesterday we went to the lake and got into a fight with me. And the other day as well, I heard that you went out with another boy, you know, so don't you hear that there is this very dangerous disease going around out there, this AIDS killing people every day? Are you not scared? You know, so, and in the conclusion is like an advice, like, please put your bottom down, whatever comes around you should find you sitting down at your mama's place, you know. So, yeah, that's the center message of the song. So, this one is kind of in English, but yeah, so this one you get the whole message. But the actual background of the music is not like an English style, I should say.
friends, perhaps I could just jump in to bring proceedings to a close. But I'm sure Davie will continue to play and entertain in the room. Just to say really, again, a very big thank you to everyone. Thanks, Ken Ross, for chairing so well. Thanks, Ken Lipenga, for your reviews. And of course, Kenneth King, for your reading of the dissertation's supervision notes from long ago. I was saying in the chat box, I'm not sure what a collective noun of Ken's is, but we've certainly got a good handful of them today. Thanks also to Muti Phoya, of course, for your remarks as publisher, and a very big thank you to John Lwanda for sharing the book with us, and allowing the Scotland Malawi Partnership to be involved in hosting. And of course, thank you to Davie for playing us out. It would be a strange event talking about live music, live Malawian music, if we didn't have any. So thanks so much for making that happen, Davie. I know, like all of us, you're juggling lots of different things. We're going to bring our digital component to a close now, but thanks everyone for joining us wherever you are. We're slowly learning how best to do these hybrid things, and my thanks to colleagues who have made the technology, I think, work really well today. What a wonderful thing that you can have people gathering in Edinburgh City Chambers. You can have your chair in Zomba, you can have your speakers in Lilongwe, and we can come together in friendship and in celebration of Malawian music and this wonderful new book. Have a great day wherever you are, and our congratulations to Dr. John Lwanda once again. Thanks ever so much. Bye for now.